Good to go.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Welcome.
Okay. All right. We can call this meeting to order, and we do have quorum now. So let's see. This is the January 25th Workforce Diversity Inclusion Committee meeting. Does anyone have announcements they'd like to share? No. Okay, so we can go right to discussing the committee's meeting schedule for 2023. Shauna has requested that we have bi-monthly meetings. So we need to discuss whether we're going bi-monthly starting in February or March. And I think there is a preference with the clerks that February be a start month because it's better for staffing here. So I'm good with that if that works for everybody else on the committee.
Can you say that again? So we would not have February, or we would?
We would start in February and from there go by monthly. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So it'd be February 22nd, April 26th, June 28th, August 23rd, October 25th, and the December meeting would be the 27th, but we would probably try to reschedule that for November 29th. Since what is it? Yeah,
It's a
holiday.
It's fine with me.
Okay, do we need to like vote on that, or we can just
No,
agree?
as long as it's the consensus of the committee.
Okay,
Do we want to confirm that the December 27th date will be for November 29th?
yes. Does anybody have any issues making the December 27th meeting for November 29th?
Okay.
All right, thank you. So next we need to discuss, we've got Shauna has, what is the word, appointed Veronica as chair starting February. So we need to discuss a vice chair. So if there are any nominations.
Rachel, you want to do it?
Are you nominating her?
Maybe if she's interested.
I'll second.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'd like to nominate Rachel. You've done a great job, in a really challenging, year with Henry, having his health difficulties and then passing away. So you really stepped right in and I think you've been a great leader. So I nominate you as vice chair if you're willing to be nominated.
I would be willing.
I'd second that.
Okay.
Then we have to vote, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Might want to ask again just for any other nominations.
Oh, yes. Are there any other nominations for vice chair of WDIC?
Okay.
Okay,
Close
we can
nominations.
close nominations.
Mhm.
And
I'll
then
move that we close nominations,
Kate seconds.
Okay.
and then we need to vote on that,
Okay.
on closing them.
Do I have a list? I just go by the screen, right? So Kate,
Yeah. Yes.
okay. Leslin votes yes to both. And Annie
Yes.
and Ken
Yes.
and Veronica. Yes. Okay.
And then vote for you. So that was vote to close nominations. Now we need a vote for you. to be
Oh,
vice.
got it. Okay, so that was the vote to close nominations. Now we vote for Rachel Graham to be vice chair.
Yeah.
And Kate
Yes.
and Annie
Yes.
and Ken.
Yes.
Leslin said yes to both, and Veronica.
Yes.
Okay, we have a chair and vice chair.
Woohoo.
Okay, we can move on now to minutes approval for the December 7th minutes. And we did get two corrections from Veronica already on the spelling of Dina's name. And I don't know what paragraph that was again.
Manifest errors both on page 4.
Both on page 4, okay. And then also in the section on page, well, mine says page 3.
Packet page or minute page?
Oh, packet page. I think this is the packet page. Where we're talking about creating 2023 goals. It referenced infinity groups
Right.
when we meant affinity groups. So those changes are being made. Does anyone have any other changes or questions for the minutes from December 7th?
Mhm.
Okay, so does anyone, can we have a mover for approving the minutes? Kate and Veronica seconds. And Kate,
Yes.
okay, Annie,
Yes.
Leslin. Yes, Ken. Yes, Veronica,
Yes.
and I'm yes. Okay, that's approved. Okay, now we're moving into discussion items and we've got the review of bylaws. And I can't remember who was. Leslin wasn't
Just
here.
moving so she doesn't have to keep turning around.
Oh.
Hopes that that's helpful.
Leslin, did you get a chance to look at the track changes? For the bylaws, you were the only one, I think, that wasn't here when we were discussing them last time. Okay, all right,
I did not. Go ahead.
okay. Is that something we should do screen share for then?
Yeah. Last time I had an issue with it. but
You did, I remember that. And I didn't bring my
Let me
laptop.
try.
We're gonna try to do a screen share so we can pull it up.
Rachel, I've forgotten, but do you happen to remember what like significant changes, or maybe even what like outstanding questions we had left?
I noted them
Yeah,
on
they're
our
noted
website.
here. So I know there was one about the undesignated seats versus designated seats. I feel like that was the only outstanding question. There was a question about the annual report, which looks like there was a follow-up on that.
And we might want to change meet monthly to meet monthly or bi-monthly.
Oh, right, yes.
Okay, so I have the track changes up on. Everybody can see that, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, what paragraph does it say?
Goals and responsibilities, maybe?
Article 6 meetings. Packet page, oh, I don't know, packet's helpful. Article 6, number 1.
Okay, yep.
Sorry if I'm moving too fast.
Since this is only a couple of pages too, we could maybe go through, one section at a time just to quickly see if anybody else has any suggestions.
Yeah, that sounds good.
No problem. It's like that.
Yes.
So you'd like to start at the top for Rachel?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Taylor, I was suggesting putting in monthly or bi-monthly, just in case it got changed back
Changed
one way or
back.
the other to
Okay.
give us the flexibility.
That
Yep.
makes sense.
And if people have the agenda out too, you can, it's the bylaws and including these track changes are in the agenda packet, if that's easier to look through it.
Oh, is that what that is?
Feels at home.
Yeah.
It's in my apartment.
I'm hearing the squirrels in chamber for the first time.
So in that Article 2, your third bullet that speaks to the county's diversity policy guidelines. Since then, the county actually adopted the diversity policy and not diversity policy guidelines. Should we change that to read the diversity policy and put in the correct adopted date of those? Of
Good
that?
idea.
That is,
You know, it's changed in the agenda, even though it's not on the screen. I don't know what happened, but do you want to see?
Oh, it is.
On the printed
It
page,
is.
doesn't match what's up right now.
oh, that's interesting.
And I think that policy was adopted later than 2012.
Yeah, this must be an older version. Unfortunately, it's the only
Yeah.
one that I have on my laptop.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
printed agenda.
In the agenda packet, it reads,
Here, let's see if this
Um,
one's more recent.
to assist the Tompkins County Legislature in fulfilling the goals of the Tompkins County Diversity and Inclusion
On
Policy.
2019.
There you go.
Yes.
Is that this one's correct?
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay, this is an older one. That's all.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys, floating
Yeah.
between a few documents here. Okay, so we wanted to change under
Article
6. Oh, boy. Let's do
And
it.
might I ask another question?
Yes.
So I see all of the him, her, his, her have been changed to their, them. Should we not just add them and keep the him, her, his, her as well? As opposed to striking those? Him, her, them, his, her, they, or their.
You want to have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a thought on that, which is that I think that the they, them, their is typically the pronoun you use for a stranger, right? Or a person who you don't know anything about.
Just
And it doesn't
neutral.
assume that that person specifically uses they, them pronouns. So correct me, this is my understanding. So just having they is general.
Neutral,
Yeah.
like anyone, right?
Lynn, have you seen in documents or seen if that's the common practice to do him, her, they?
They, them, yes, that's what I have seen as best practice. I understand what Veronica's saying, and that's why I asked if there was a reason. to strike his or her as well. I'm fine either way. I just wanted to know. So you can leave it as they, them, there. And that's just fine.
I'm good with it either way. I mean, I think it,
So them is fine, there is fine. It's okay.
okay.
I just wanted to know why.
Okay, any other spots you want to specifically look back at?
Just thinking, since it's the first time Leslie's seen the changes, just go through, we got the first Article 1, Article 2, maybe just look at Article 3. Make sure there's no,
I was wondering about in Article 2 at the first bulleted paragraph. So we're, let's see, we took out affirmative action officer. Just wondering, is that the place? There's no reference in here of our chief equity and diversity officer. I'm just wondering if that relationship, I'm not saying it has to go here. Are we advising them? Are we working with them? That person? I'm just wondering if we want that person in here somewhere in our relationship.
That's a good point, Annie. I think it should be, since we now have that position.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
I agree with that as well.
My only question about that would be, I think that the way that was voted by the legislature, it was like a 3-year thing that then needs to be voted by the ledge again after 3 years to keep it.
Really?
I think so. That's how my memory is remembering that. It wasn't a permanent
Yeah,
position.
I think you're right, Rachel. I do remember it being a multi-year, unless that changed, but we'll probably review bylaws before. Because I mean, this would be year 2. So I mean, right? Is that
Oh,
right?
that's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, we can change it if we needed to, but
Yeah. I think it makes sense for them to be included there.
Maybe here, because Commissioner of Human Resources is doubled in this now.
Right. Yeah. Replace the second one
Okay, so we'll
with chief equity and diversity officer.
And yeah, that definitely should be included. And the affirmative action officer, although it's one and the same person right now, they're two differently recognized positions in the county.
That's true.
say that
So I
again.
think it should remain affirmative action officer.
Mhm.
Just like.
So there
the
is a
civil service
role
person.
for an affirmative action officer. It's just that
It's-
we don't have one right now.
It's one and the same person.
I think
Oh,
it's that
okay.
Ruby
So-
is
Ruby
that.
is the Commissioner. of
Ruby
Human
is our affirmative
Resources.
action officer, so she responds to things that are related. She is also a commissioner of human resources, and she's also a civil service commissioner. They're three
like to
very
leave that.
distinct roles.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
maybe leave in affirmative action officer / commissioner.
Sure, I would leave it and I wouldn't take it out.
Would you like it to say?
Although
something?
given what the courts are doing.
'Cause it
we
could
might-
event, it could be two different people. I
Okay.
think it just happens to be Ruby for both right now.
No,
That's true.
I think the county made a deliberate the effort that that person is the same person.
Oh, okay.
Right, unless, right, somewhere down the line, they decide to do different people. The same person carries all three roles, which I've
Okay.
argued against, but it remains.
Veronica.
I have a question about including the chief equity and diversity officer. I agree that that title should be in the bylaws, but is it true that this committee advises that person? Or does that person advise this committee, or does it go some other way? Like, what is the relationship there?
Yes.
Well,
It's not
since
obvious
this
to me
isn't,
that it's the same as like
Yeah.
we advise the county administrator. I'm
I
not sure
think
who I'm
we had-
asking.
We advise them, I would think.
That is correct.
Okay.
So do we want to add, oh, well, we do have it in there. Okay. And just as a note, since we mentioned the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer, at some point when we're talking about the goals and also this position, since it was looked at when we were reconfiguring our committees for this year, it was a question of whether this committee was going to continue and whether the goals would be achieved through Team Jedi and the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer. So that would be something maybe we want to put on the agenda for possibly for next month to discuss that. I'll
Okay,
leave that up to Veronica.
okay. And
Is that a bylaws related question or just separate?
No, I just thought I'd just mention it now since we're just talking about this, but it would be, we would maybe bring it up next month as a separate issue.
Okay. I've made a note of it. Other,
But it could be as we're looking at one of the reasons I thought about it too, not just because I guess mentioning that, but when we get into the next page where we're looking at the roles and responsibilities of this committee, we'll probably use this as reference when we start to look at, do we want to recommend that this, committee be continued or can some, some or most of these responsibilities be met, or are they being met somewhere else?
right. Does anyone have any other questions, comments for Article 2? We can move to Article 3. Veronica?
A question. Well, it's the one that's in the comments about the undesignated seats.
Yes.
So I think if I recall correctly, we discussed the possibility, like right now, everyone's in undesignated seats, I think, but we discussed the possibility of having seats to represent particular groups. And there are lots of possibilities for that. And one thing I noticed in the current bylaws over in Article 4, one of the roles and responsibilities is for this committee is to function as a representative of the represented segment of the community or group and to be knowledgeable about the diversity policy guidelines. We should change that.
Yeah.
Well, we should change the diversity policy guidelines, but this function as a representative of the represented segment of the community or group. I guess my first question is that what does this language mean? And second,
Right, because it sounds like it would only be the represented segment of the representatives on the committee.
yeah, although since we're changing the bylaws, we could change it. So I guess the question is, do we want to be naming communities or groups that we are being sure are represented by members of the committee? And if so, what ones? Or do we want to leave it as undesignated like it is right now?
It looks like Robert raised his hand.
Rob?
Did you call in someone?
We did. Rob had his hand raised,
been
but she
trying
had to promote him
Yeah.
to a
I've been
panelist.
trying to do it for a while.
Hi there. Didn't realize that I wasn't a panelist yet.
There you
Ah.
go. Okay.
Okay, there we, now we can hear you.
Sorry about that. So my comment on that is whenever we specify specific groups, we lock ourselves into that and create an obligation on ourselves to make use of those specific groups. And the decisions we make now may not serve the interest of the committee specifically. It could be unwittingly exclusionary of some groups in the event of if we were to seek to have representation from a group in the sense of a community organization, that community organization may not last. So for all of those reasons, I don't think that we should name the groups in our bylaws. But hold each other accountable to fervently ensure the representation of the diversity of our community.
Thank you. Leslyn?
So although I agree with my dear friend Rob, by the way, Happy New Year, Rob. I ain't seen you in a minute.
Indeed.
I am not in favor of not having the broad groups like legislature, county staff, and the community. I don't want the specificity of somebody from the LGBTQ community or, you know, somebody from labor, but those broad headings I think are incredibly important. I've seen too many times where, you know, it gets whittled down to, and especially in government, to just government representatives. And the WDIC, the I in it needs to be very clear. So not designated seats in the sense that it is like Rob was saying, and I do agree with that, someone from very specific groups, but the broad areas of legislature, county staff, and the community, I think it's really important to leave as in there.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Okay,
So leave as is.
so, but you're saying not leave it undesignated, then we should add.
I think it's fine if it's in
Okay.
there, but if you go down to qualifications,
Right.
that third one, that one says who are, you know, broad cross-section of geographic areas and who sort of we're looking for.
Okay,
Legislature, county staff, and community. I want to make sure that that's preserved,
yeah,
that it doesn't become all legislators or all county staff. There might as well be Jedi, but that it truly is inclusive.
okay. So is everyone else good with leaving
This pair.
number 1 undesignated?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
sorry, I think why not say, like, why not codify that the individuals have to come from representation from like these 3 categories? Not necessarily, maybe something like it's got to have at least 2 legislators and 2 staff members and 2 community members and otherwise undesignated. I don't know what the bylaw language form of that would be.
If we agree on adding it, I can look into the correct form.
Okay. Does anyone have thoughts on Veronica's comment?
I'm just, if we did have it codified in that way, say, you know, at least, you know, designated, you know, 2 seats for legislators, 2 seats for county staff, 2 seats for the community, and the rest could be undesignated, then anybody from those 3 groups could apply for any of the other undesignated seats. I'm not saying not pushing one way or the other, but I'm just saying that it wouldn't limit, it would just be minimums. It sounds like what you're going for. Is that correct, Veronica? Just you'd like minimums for those two and then,
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah, but maybe at least rather than two, if we're still saying undesignated.
well, you don't want to have at least because it would be 2 seats.
Oh.
And if you had at least, then it would be harder, and Taylor can correct me, the clerks are trying to help us keep track of whether seats are filled or not. And if we just have at least, they're not going to know whether
Oh, right,
what
okay.
seats are
Yes.
open. Is that
Okay, they're
correct?
all coming.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Anna, you've drawn the other clerks out of the offices. This is the hot topic.
Hot topic.
So was that correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
So it would designate 2 seats to legislators, 2 seats to employees, and the remaining seats
Will
will
remain
be.
undesignated.
Or can we
Okay.
also do 2 seats to, we say community
Community
members, but
members.
would it be like people who are not employed by Tompkins County?
Right, to community
Not that
members.
we're
I think
not
that's,
community members,
Right,
but
right.
yeah.
Leslin has her hand up. Oh, no,
Just an old hand.
she's an old hand at this.
Okay, how's everybody feeling about this?
So
Rob's got his hand raised again. Go ahead, Rob.
I just want to ensure that we're exercising clarity on the community members. The qualifications clause specifically does acknowledge that a county employee need not be a county resident to participate. However, since we're doing this process, do we wish to explicitly establish that for community members, we specifically wish to recruit residents of the county that the legislature represents, or do we wish to leave it open? That's a question, not a statement of preference.
Mhm. Thoughts on that, anyone?
Yep.
I was thinking that I like that what Rob brought up. Because if we say, I'm just thinking of, we want somebody from a specific, somebody from a specific group or organization, that mostly deals with community members in this county. I mean, there's some organizations that could be multi-county, or, it could be, you could have the diversity officer, I don't know what the correct title is, from Cornell. Would we want, I would be open to them
Sure,
living
that makes
outside
sense.
the county.
So typically how the advisory boards, which is how we treat this, at the people who are appointed to the advisory boards, they pretty much have to be county residents unless there's something specific in their bylaws or by state or federal guidelines that say that they don't have to be county residents. Now, county, because you're designating two county employee seats, they don't necessarily have to be county residents also. But unless you want to specifically spell that out in your bylaws, we would run under the assumption that they have to be county residents as well.
It says in the bylaws already that the county's county staff representatives, let's see, residency within Tompkins County is not a requirement for county staff. Can we put in there county staff or community or community members, something like that?
I don't think so, right? Because I think if it's just a community member that's not staff, they would be requiring them to be a resident.
Or is that open to us in our bylaws?
I think we've made exceptions in our bylaws before in the I'm sorry, I just jumped right in.
That's fine. Go ahead.
Holler me, Rachel, go ahead. I'm legitimate. we've made exceptions, especially when subject matter experts or people don't necessarily live in the county. I think I heard someone mentioned, let's say it's one of the diversity officers from Cornell University who does not live in a county, but that person would be key on this committee. We've done that for other advisory committees and made exceptions when there are very specific seats. So, I mean, if the clerks of the legislature wants to double check on that, but I think my old hand and old brain remembers that clearly, that we have done that for several advisory committees for specific designated seats. So we can say that community members, particularly if they are if they have expertise in the field or something like that.
We do have so the Workforce Development Board is, I believe it kind of sounds to me like that's what you're speaking to, Leslin. And they are set up, I'm not sure if it's state or federal or both, but their seats are designated to specific specialties and positions, where a lot of the members, actually most of the members on that particular board do not live in Tompkins County, but they serve people within Tompkins County to some aspect.
Yeah. So I think we have precedents for this already, because I remember being on a family court advisory board, and that was one of the things as well. We had people who didn't live in the county, but served on that board because they fit a certain seat. Well, those would be my thoughts on how we can do it.
I'll defer to Katrina a little bit, but I would say you don't necessarily have to spell that out in your bylaws. If you want to make the exception, you could even say something in the bylaws that say, or as the committee agrees, or something like that.
Sounds good to me.
2 thumbs up from Leslin. That's
Okay.
approved.
So we would like this the way it is, to add or community members.
Yes,
Okay, and then that would kind of excuse it up here.
right.
Okay.
All right.
Mm. No,
It's fine.
can't say it twice.
Will be undesignated.
Yeah, sure, there we
Yeah, that
go.
works. All right. I think we're good with number 1 there.
Okay.
Anything else for Article 3?
I guess I'm curious to hear from Leslin or anyone else. I guess we heard from Robert, thank you, the rationale for not specifying more specific groups. Whether it have to be with like personal demographic, like race or gender or whatever, or like role among the staff, like are you part of a labor union or management or whatnot?
Right, and that question did come up last time,
Yeah.
because right now, all of the staff members that are on WDIC are management. And I think it would be nice to have union representation, or not necessarily like the leadership in the union, but somebody who's in the union. Ideally white and blue collar, in my opinion, but it's been really difficult to get someone blue collar to join. I've tried.
And that's where your discretion comes in as well as a committee. I don't think you necessarily want to name those seats, because then you might have a hard time filling them, and leaving that the way that it is. So you've got the 6 designated seats, and then the remaining 7 can be used at your discretion. Like if you have someone that comes forward or is interested from blue collar or white collar, maybe give preference to them over another management role perhaps.
Right.
Yep.
And then I think also having in here that the intent of the committee is to include representation. Or wait, somewhere it says about the broader community, doesn't it?
It is the intent that this committee shall include representation from the county representing various legislature, county staff, and the community. That needs rewording a little bit.
Somewhere there was,
Too many representation.
Is the intent that this committee shall include representation from the county? What would you change? That one.
oh, this is what I
Yes.
was looking for. The membership should consist of individuals from a broad cross-section of geographical areas of
Oh, yeah.
Tompkins groups.
Next sentence up, yep.
So I think as long as we're in recruiting membership, trying to make sure we have a broad cross-section. I don't know.
Like that.
Annie?
Just wondering, in that sentence, if we want to either add some other things to try and like capture, more diversity, or another suggestion is to take out from the of geographical areas, and then just leave the sentence under number 3, qualifications. The membership should consist of individuals from a broad cross-section of Tompkins County or Tompkins groups. I'm not sure what Tompkins groups means.
So have it read, the membership should consist of individuals from a broad cross-section of the broad cross-section of the county representing various members of the legislature, county staff, and the community as a whole.
Sure,
Yeah,
I like that. Does that, I'm wondering if that's for Leslin and Rob, who had various opinions on this, if that would kind of address that, but not address it too specifically. Or specific enough.
In the sentence that we just modified, I would replace groups with residents or community. I think that by having that clause there, starting qualifications, broad cross-section of Tompkins County persons, that the rest of what we're talking about is already contained within that sentence. And I would find further clarifying language to just make the document longer.
Works for me.
confused on what.
Yeah, I'm not confused. I don't understand what that.
Can you repeat that, Rob? Sorry, you lost us for a minute there.
Okay, I was saying that I think the membership should consist of individuals from a broad cross-section of Tompkins County persons. It would be my recommendation.
Okay.
Carries in it any further clarifying language of as many different diverse subpopulations as possible and whatnot in a reasonably concise way, and so it serves the function that any additional clause would add with brevity.
So you're saying just end it with persons?
Yeah.
And then we don't need those next two, is it two sentences?
That's my opinion,
What I have
yes.
highlighted there, yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
I like it.
So we would instead do this.
Cause it makes us look at, it makes us, self-reflect and look at the county.
Right.
And since you have the seats designated.
Okay. And then we want to strike guidelines. Right, where it says Tompkins County
Right.
Diversity Policy Guidelines.
Does it need to be diversity and inclusion policy?
Yes, if that's the title of the policy.
That's what we put in Article 2.
Okay, yeah, so we'll keep that consistent. And then we don't need to reference the dates and everything there because we already did above, right?
Right.
Okay. Anything else on Article 3? We can move on to Article 4. Okay. Let's take a look at Article 4 and we'll start from the top if anybody has anything. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Again, the same thing in the second sentence with policy guidelines.
Oh, yeah.
To diversity and inclusion policy.
It might make sense also for us to include the Chief Equity and Diversity Officer with receiving complaints, because I know that when Deanna was here, that did happen. There were some complaints that went through her rather than HR. Rob?
I'd just like to question about the start of the second clause there, to function as a representative of the represented segment of the community. I find that questionable.
Yeah.
While I am proud to bring my particular perspective on being a proud queer disabled country guy / gal, I would not presume to say I am a representative of all of us within the community, but certainly advocating for our collective interests and those of identity groups that I am not a member of. So that, like, representative of the segment of the community of which I am makes me squeamish.
So representative of the community and of the community, or do we want to leave or group? If there's someone representing a group?
Can I
Yeah.
chime in?
Please.
I'm wondering is if we want to go back and say, let's see, to function as a representative. I wonder if there's a different way to say that. Let's see.
What if we just cut that whole piece and just have that say, to be knowledgeable about the goals of the Tompkins County Diversity and Inclusion Policy?
I like that because, that's, we wouldn't expect people, as I think this is what Rob's getting at, is that you wouldn't expect somebody to have to be their representative, like someone to, like for me to be, I don't represent all lesbians or country lesbians.
Okay.
Like, we don't want to do tokenism. That's the point.
Right. Okay.
And expect that person to know about their group. I mean, you could have sometimes where somebody's, even if you're a leader of an organization that is representing or being an ally or supporting people, it might not be that you're always, yeah. So I like just taking it out. Does that make sense, Rob?
It makes sense to me. And I would follow that up perhaps to say to be knowledge about and advance the goals of the Tompkins County Diversity and Inclusion Policy.
Nice. Yes, I like it.
It's not just our job to know about them, it's to champion them.
Yes, thank you.
So I agree with taking it, there I go again, just jumping in.
That's okay. Leslyn.
Thank you. So I agree with just taking it out, but I think it's important for you all to understand the context in which that was written. And I remember that language coming pretty much specifically from labor representatives who were on the group and demanded to have a space at the table and to be able to represent. I think we had the president of one of the unions and the vice president of one of the unions. It didn't have anything to do with our social groups or identity groups, but more or less to do with bargaining unit groups who wanted to have that that language and that saying the table. So I think I'm fine with taking it out. I just wanted you all to understand context of
Thank
why
you.
it was there.
I should think that if a person were to seek membership, or we were to recruit a person to be a member as a representative of the bargaining unit, and the bargaining unit consented that they should be its representative, we could embed that in their nomination. You know, we nominate little Susie to be a member of WDIC, recognizing them as the recognized representative of the blue collar unit, or whichever it may be.
Right. So yeah, so they just wanted to put some context around it so people understood it had nothing to do with me representing the Black community or anything like that, but really this was language that came from them.
Thank you.
Take it out.
Okay, do we have more changes for Article 4? Veronica.
Just the thing at the bottom about the annual action plan and the submitting the annual report, just confirming whether we do each. I mean, I guess our goals are an annual action plan,
Yeah,
maybe, and the annual report, it sounds like that has not actually happened. So I guess we should decide, should it?
Annie.
So I think, yes, I think kind of what you're saying, Veronica, but how about that it's changed that we report rather than submit, is that we report the annual goals, or let's see, to develop annual goals. Take out action plan and report regularly. So keep the rest assigned to the personnel function. And then again, where it says submit, report. I'll wait till you get to that. And to report on the previous year's annual goals.
And accomplishments and things like that.
And accomplishments, goals and accomplishments. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, we already do that, so I'm fine with that. Take out the date and all of that.
Just do that whole one.
And again, every place that we have diversity policy guidelines, we can just do a find and replace with D&I policy.
Some titles here. I want to make sure it wasn't here.
Yeah, and there
that's
was also, I had a thought that in that third paragraph, we should add the chief equity and diversity officer also. All right. Anyone else have anything more for Article 4?
What do people understand? Go back. There's that, I don't know what one that is. These things need bullets or something. To offer leadership expertise, and it's about midway there. Yes. I always like to get an understanding of what we mean by underrepresented individuals. Are we talking about people we don't have enough, BIPOC folks? Are we talking about people who are marginalized and who are minoritized? What are we talking about underrepresented individuals? Is that our understanding of what that means?
Right.
I mean, I've always understood that term as being a pretty broad umbrella of folks who have had historic as well as current struggles, and along, and that reflects, is reflected in race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, veteran status, and on and on. I mean, I've always understood that in very broad strokes.
Me too, and I just want to make sure that that's the understanding that we're all going in there with this as.
Do you think it's worth clarifying that with some language? Because I think I share like the combo of what you both said, Leslie and Dr. Clark. But I know that, for instance, not all of like our colleagues outside of this committee necessarily share that understanding.
Right.
Exactly.
I think, yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, it could be with a proviso, including but not limited to, because we know that, those categories expand. So, I mean, if there is if there's a pithy way to do it, if there's not, but it needs to be done in order to spell it out, then we just do it.
Does anyone have language they'd suggest?
I don't have any language right now. We can probably revisit this, but as long as we have the same understanding and we can explain what we mean by that,
Right.
That broad terminology, I think that's fine. And we can always revisit it for language clarification.
Yeah. I mean, one good source would be the categories that are covered by human rights law in New York State.
And we can say that on the render as defined by New York State human rights law.
I'm sorry, say again, Leslie?
So we can clarify by saying as defined by
Yes.
New York State human rights law. Is that what you're suggesting?
I wouldn't necessarily go there because while I'm actually reasonably proud of New York State human rights law compared to some others, I think it's really important for us as an advisory board to retain the space to advise our legislature to exceed the specifics of the state human rights law and seek to be a leader in the broadest, most progressive, and most just interpretation of diversity and inclusion we can. Again, I like our state's law, but it could be better, and we potentially have a role in making that better.
And we have. Tompkins County certainly has helped to change state law. So I have no problem with that. I was just asking Dr. Clark for clarification. As long as we all understand what we mean and we can explain it, I think that's fine.
Mhm.
Okay. Any more questions or changes for Article 4? Moving on to officers, Article 5.
I guess for number 3, it says the January meeting, but should we change that to first meeting of the year in case
It's not
we
January.
do bi-monthly starting in February in the future?
Yes.
Or at the first meeting of the calendar year, something.
Now, it says initially the chair shall be a county legislator. But I'm thinking since this is a special committee of the county legislature, that it has to be a county legislator. Am I correct, legislators?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I'm comfortable in leaving it or changing it, saying that the chair is a legislator. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm just asking because normally if it's a committee of the legislature, then the chair, although this is an advisory,
Right.
I don't even know.
Did
how
we
to-
discuss this? Sorry, not
Fashion is
specifically after Henry
We have,
resigned.
yeah.
when- Yeah.
And I think in that meeting, we decided that it didn't necessarily have to be, but
Does the chair of WDIC have to be a legislator?
It was set up initially that way. It is our understanding that it does not have to be, but it is the preference of the legislature that it is at this time.
and to me, it makes sense for it to be a legislator for a few reasons, but the main reason is if the chair is the person reporting to the legislature,
That's why we have this.
that
question.
person would be there anyway, where a community member would be having to volunteer time to come to more meetings
Right.
to report out. And then it's also like, drawing up resolutions and proclamations, and most community members aren't versed in that.
I agree, and I also think that we shouldn't discount the fact that our legislators are in fact elected by the people, whereas the rest of us on the committee are appointed. So I think that elections should matter.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so we made that change. That's okay.
Yes. Annie, is your hand up for something else?
Let's see. I was going to bring up that number 2 and number 3. Are we done with number 2? I wanted to say something else about number 3.
I think so, unless anyone else has something for number 2. Okay.
Number 2.
I was wondering if we wanted to specifically say that it could be anybody in the committee for vice chair for number 3. I don't know if we need to. But I was also wondering about the date where you were saying the first, maybe the first meeting after the chair is appointed, because that would give us, because the chair of this committee, I don't know if they're appointed or they're in effect.
They're elected.
Well, the chair, after the
Oh,
chair,
oh, no,
the
the
chair is
chair is
appointed.
The vice chair.
I guess it would be after they're appointed, because just looking at this year, like say Veronica, who was appointed now to be chair of this committee starting next month. What if she was currently vice chair? So I guess it would be okay to leave it like it is. Well, unless we change the time of the meeting, I guess that would only, there could be a time if we change the time of the meeting to the first week of the month, for instance, we wouldn't know who the chair, we usually don't know our appointments till the second week of January. So, but maybe I'm splitting hairs here. Does anybody see what I'm getting at or not?
I do, I just don't know how to. I don't know if that, I don't know if it needs to be in the bylaws.
I guess if we're not able to in January because we don't have, say we change the meeting, next year till the first week. Well, we're actually not going to change it. We pretty much have our meetings set through, and that we're not going to have one in January. So, and if it did come up, I think it'd probably be okay to say, hey, we couldn't do it in January. We're doing it this month. It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna hurt anything. So so thanks for hearing me talk it out. I think leaving it is fine.
Okay, thank you.
So the way it reads is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or actually, do we want to change it to the first meeting of the year rather than
That's-
January? Since,
Nope, no January.
We've got January X'd out already.
oh, we do. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
Sorry, I
we
didn't see
first
that.
changed it to first meeting of
After
the
the chair
calendar
is
year,
appointed.
and then we changed it to after the chair is appointed.
Okay. That covers it for me.
Okay, anything else for officers? Article 5 from anyone else?
I had one more.
Sure.
Number 7, the secretarial duties, is that the term we want to use? And I'll leave that
Clerical?
for,
We could use
I don't want
clerical.
all the clerks to have to come out. Maybe Taylor can answer that.
I like clerical.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
suggest clerical.
Although secretarial as capitalized
Right.
does invoke the function of an entity's secretary as the
Right.
custodian of records and certifier of the accuracy of them.
Okay.
So I see that as a recognition of a formal and well-recognized role that we should keep.
Okay,
You are very correct, Rob. Once you said it, I remember why it was that way.
okay.
Good point,
But
because
I
it
don't
has
care, it can
capital
be
S. Okay, leave that one too.
Okay.
That's all I just getting my little Robert's rules. Oh. I was curious if Robert's Rules of Order, although this is old, mentioned a secretary formally, but it does in a section called secretary or clerk. The recording officer is variously called clerk or secretary or recording secretary or recorder or scribe. So,
Okay, so the S is capital and we're good with that. Okay.
Also, Veronica, those are my rules. I can change them whenever I want.
good point.
Right,
definitely
Rob's,
how this works.
Rob's rules.
we good to move on to Article 6? Meetings. So, we changed that to bi-monthly already. Oh, was the bi not there? Is that why that's yellow? Yeah, okay. Okay. It's usually called by the chair. Quorum is a majority based on the number of memberships. That's good. Anyone have anything for this section? Ooh, look at us moving through. Okay,
Yeah, it wasn't in there.
all right. All right, so now Article 7 amendments. Everybody good with that one? And adoption? Phew, okay.
I have one more.
Yes.
I'm so sorry. In
No.
Article 4,
Uh-huh.
as Leslyn pointed out, there's a bunch of unnumbered bulleted things, and I'm wondering if we could bullet or number them.
Yes.
That's all. There are examples of bullets and numbers in other articles, so I don't know which makes more sense here.
You want all of it?
Article,
Is it, this is 4?
that's, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you want all of them numbered?
Either all of them or everything except that first line.
Oh, right. Yeah. Maybe bullets make more sense than numbers.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know
Thank
the
you.
reason between using numbers and bullets though, is there?
Neither do I.
Okay.
But this seems to match the formatting of Article 2, which goes, the purpose of the committee shall
Right,
be in the
right.
bullets.
Okay.
So I would be surprised if it's problematic.
So then we have quorum. Do we want to do anything with this or do we table it for the next meeting?
I think the next meeting, according to that article, we just
Yes.
didn't edit.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'll make the total changes and I'll include all 3 documents, and the last document will have no track changes. It will just be the final, what we're voting on.
Okay. So
Does
we'll
that sound
vote on
okay?
that and then that, does that go to Geo and then the ledge? Or does it just go?
The reporting committee, so it's
So
budget.
BCP.
It's BCP, not Geo. It's BCP, right?
Oh,
Okay.
BCP, okay,
Yes, I got that right.
okay. Okay, so in February, we'll vote to pass it on to BCP.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I'm gonna stop sharing.
And what time, what do we have for time?
We've got 8 minutes
We've
left.
got 8 minutes to
plan a year.
discuss 2022 and 2023 goals.
And we did want to do a discussion on the climate survey, but we can defer if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Okay.
We definitely have to defer some.
I think we have to defer most of it because I can't imagine in 8 minutes, we're going to be able to really discuss the goals enough.
So it will be April, right? or February?
February.
Okay, so which would you like? Climate
Um,
survey or?
To discuss now.
Or
Well,
to defer, whichever you prefer.
well, we should defer the climate survey for sure, because I think Lisa should be here for that conversation.
Okay.
What if we deferred both and discussed that article?
Okay, yeah, that's great.
Because I was going to ask to discuss that before the goals,
Which
before
makes
the
sense.
2023 goals anyway.
Right.
'cause-
Perfect. Okay, so we're deferring the discussion of the goals and the workplace climate survey to discuss the article that Jennifer shared with us.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the failure of the DEI industrial complex from Harvard Business Review. You want to kick us off?
Sure. This, did everybody read the article? Can you tell I'm a teacher?
I would be the first to admit that I did not, but I
Okay.
do plan on reading it.
I did read it. I thought it was helpful. Thank you for sending.
Yeah, I think, and it was Dr. Jen
Yep.
sent it, right? To share.
Yes.
So unfortunate that she's not here. The summary of the article is that the DEI industrial complex does not tend to function to achieve actual improved diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the article makes 4 suggestions summarized as identify challenges before you choose solutions, choose specialists like experts to bring in whose expertise is targeted to the specific skills you want your organization to build, or some part of it. Measure outcomes in addition to inputs, and names that any DEI initiative is essentially an experiment. You measure how things are, then you do something, then you actually measure what happened after that. And have those doing the work inform the budget for it. And noting that it's like, this is hard, complicated work, and it isn't going to be cheap. And you can't just try to do the cheapest thing and say, hey, we're doing diversity. So some thoughts I had related to the county, I guess, that the identifying challenges before the solution seems related to the workplace climate survey. I don't know much about that, but I imagine that these kind of thoughts should or could or hopefully can inform what that survey will look like. Correct me if I'm wrong. The measuring outcomes also seems important, and I'm curious, like what we already do, or sort of, I guess, what metrics we already have that we could then measure again in after, doing something, some kind of intervention. And the money thing, I just this morning, a few of the newer legislators met with county administration just to hang out and get to know each other. And we talked about the topic of communications. So different topic, but one thing that came up is that communication and doing social media, connecting with residents is actually it might sound simple, but it's actually really hard. It's really multifaceted, and it does take a lot of work. And often it takes several different experts doing the thing, and you do have to pay for that, but it pays off. And that seems to me like a similar philosophy to bring into this. I feel like we're doing a similar thing with the consultant that we're paying to administer the recovery fund. I've forgotten the number, but it's cost, a bunch of money and an increasing amount of money. And the feedback I'm hearing from everyone working with them is, and my personal experience as well, is like, oh, they're great. They're on the ball. It's like so good that we have them. Yeah, those are my starting thoughts.
Okay. Does anyone else have thoughts they want to share on the article? Annie?
Yeah, I was thinking, I wish we had our chief equity and diversity officer here, to participate in this conversation. So I have heard this before, and I'd be interested to know, what other people think. I mean, my expertise is about nil in this, but so I have heard this, issue before, as far as, needing to approach this and do this a different way. And so I think, starting with the person we're hiring, to help us would be a necessary step to, as maybe one of our goals, added to our goals for this year, to talk about this with our chief equity and diversity officer.
I think the article was right on. And I think too, as I think about our experience in the county and the way in which, for instance, the data that we got from the last survey was what informed our thinking, our proposal for the CEDO position. And that's a case in point. It's sort of an example of how data can inform this. But I think too, the article talks about the next steps in that journey, which are very important. And I think that, having worked on these issues now for over 3 decades, I can, I resonate with these 4 points because I've seen how when one or more of those pieces are not in place, how things don't happen, even though. So I found it. I think it's on point.
I guess my one suggestion would be being, in a department and reading the article and trying to move the needle a little bit within the work we do is for the new chief diversity person to meet with individual, having that more focused approach for individual department. I know there's like a need for a countywide, but each department is going to face its individual challenges around this. And I've been trying to think about metrics, and it's for us, it's a big question around, because we already collect a lot of data and OCFS, children, our state agencies are asking us to look at disproportionality already. So having, I don't know how you do it. Okay. I don't know how you do a overall arching thing for the whole county, but then help individual departments that have their, individual challenges, regulations, that sort of thing, work within that too. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just piggyback off what she just said, I think, even for our department, we do also collect a lot of data, but to be able to tell a better story, to be able to have that conversation and to be more just to get some guidance on the best way to do that and to make sure that it's telling accurate, and then also being able to paint a better picture of where those gaps in services are, you know, and to make sure that we're actually addressing the needs that are relevant and timely, would be very helpful.
Thanks, Kate. Okay. It is 5:03. So
You're in charge.
Hey, I guess we can talk more about this if we need to when we discuss the goals in February.
Mhm.
And I don't have any other reports or updates unless anyone else does. So I guess we can adjourn the meeting. Unless anyone is opposed. Okay,
Okie dokie.
well, we got the bylaws done.
Hooray.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next month, and then after that, every other.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Take
Take
care.
care.
everyone.
Get home safe.
Yes, you
Indeed.
do the same, everyone.
Did you see Rob's?
Yes, yeah.